Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Thursday, October the 16th. Hopefully you're having a great day so far. This is a pre-recorded version of Let's Talk Tropics as we don't have any active systems that are out there right now. We said goodbye to Lorenzo, which was kind of a short-lived tropical storm out in the central part of the Atlantic. It is now a non-tropical low, getting caught up in the upper-level westerlies and will shove most of its energy off toward the east. But we got a couple of decent tropical waves that are moving across the Atlantic. Some of the global models are still suggesting some tropical development over the Caribbean here in just a little over a week. So we'll go over the models in just a little bit and see if there's anything that we need to be worried about. But a beautiful day, a gorgeous Thursday here in the Acadiana region. We've got a lot of sunshine here and there. We're going to see a few more clouds kind of billowing as we head into the afternoon. A little more moisture starting to stream in ahead of a front that's expected to come in here on Saturday night. That could bring us some showers, some thunderstorms, and maybe even a little bit of severe weather, especially over our far northern sections late Saturday night into early Sunday. Gorgeous day there over in Orange Beach. Hopefully, if you're one of my friends that are over there with time off, enjoy that nice sunny day. One of my favorite places in the whole wide world is Dauphin Island, Alabama. And can see a gorgeous day there, too. Working our way off toward the west into Cocodrie over toward Lumcon. Things looking good. That camera pointing off toward the west. And then we look at Galveston here. This is Bayou Vista, but it's close to Galveston. And you can see we got a little bit more cloud cover there as some of that low-level moisture is streaming inland there along the coast of Texas. And check it out there. That's a pretty shot. You see the freight train about ready to go across the bridge. We don't catch that very often on Let's Talk Tropics, but there goes the train moving across the bridge over Bayou Vista. Well, we've got the winds and seas in the offshore waters. Not too bad today. And for our friends that are working in the far offshore waters, you're probably looking at a decent day, maybe a little more breezy farther out on some of the rigs and platforms out there. But our near shore waters, we are looking at winds out of the east today at about 5 to 10 knots and seas running about 1 to 2 feet. High pressure remains in control, so the only showers that we're finding here are kind of picking up on the radar there north of Corpus Christi, but probably a lot of that not getting to the ground as it's a little bit of upper level moisture kind of streaming in, but you can see we've got that big ridge of high pressure here. Everything kind of going around this low and then up and around like that. Then you got another low that's out here off the east coast of the U.S. So that's kind of the pattern across North America. And with that ridge of high pressure still kind of in control here along the Gulf Coast, that shoves everything over the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico westward. And then it starts to turn north here over Texas, and that's where we're going to finally see some of the moisture moving back in. Got some showers, some thunderstorms that are still lingering down here along the Yucatan. Part of that is that ridge of high pressure, and the other part of it is a frontal boundary that continues to kind of slide off toward the south. There's a little better view of some of that down here coming on in with that frontal boundary, and that frontal boundary extends back over Cuba, but we can see that the rest of the Caribbean satellite looks okay. A little bit of a flare-up of some thunderstorm activity with more of a monsoonal trough coming off the northern coast of South America. And then there you can see that frontal boundary, how it extends all the way down into the Caribbean Sea. And those northerly breezes are going to continue to push southward here from the east coast. So with all that cooler air diving southward, that should protect the east coast, at least for the next week or so, from any tropical weather from coming in. The waves that we're watching are out here, though, and some of this moisture is forecast to move westward into the southern part of the Caribbean. At this point, it looks like the frontal boundary is probably going to miss out on that, so it'll continue on that westerly track. Will it go into the northern coast of South America, or will it emerge into parts of the southern Caribbean? That is still yet to be seen, but those are really the only two waves that we're watching right now. The National Hurricane Center isn't too excited just yet, but I think once we get within that 7-day window, we might start to see some of those low-end chances, the yellow shades, 20 to 30% chance for some development here as we get into the next couple of days. So right now, the National Hurricane Center not calling for any new tropical activity to form here for the next 7 days. Part of the reason why I am a little bit more concerned about the Caribbean and what could be coming within the next week, the possibility of something maybe developing in this general area, you can see that those water temperatures are still at extreme levels, pushing over 30 degrees Celsius. So that's 86, 87 degrees, which is well above normal still. But we are starting to see some cool down here along the East Coast, which is a typical trend that we start to see in October. Waters are starting to cool a bit here over the Gulf, but you can see they're still running above normal. And we've got a lot of heat potential here over the western part of the Caribbean. So if we get any kind of a tropical wave to kind of slide its way into that area, not only will it have the warm surface temperatures, but that 80-degree water goes way down below the surface. And if you get some ripe atmospheric conditions, including a little bit of low wind shear, which we're seeing almost the entire Caribbean is just absent of wind shear right now. But over the next couple of days, I think the shear is going to build a little bit, especially over the Gulf waters, and then eventually pushing into the northern part of the Caribbean too. So we can go through some of the models again. Excuse me. I know this is going to be a little bit of a shorter broadcast here. But as we kind of look at the frontal boundaries that are going to be pushing off the East Coast and another frontal boundary here, that should block most of the Gulf from having anything come at least close to us. But as we go kind of into the future here, I want you to watch some of that moisture as it starts to stream across the western part of the Atlantic right here. And as we get toward the end of the weekend and the early part of next week, you see that moisture still gathers there over the central part of the Caribbean. And then once we get to about next Tuesday or so, we are seeing a little bit more of the possibility of some development there over with the Euro. Now, the Euro has not been as excited as the GFS and the Canadian have been. But we're already out here beyond that 240-hour. I kind of like to draw the line at 10 days because beyond 10 days, we do see it's really hard to depend on what our models are showing there. But as we go out to the 240 range, you can see that there is a low pressure area there over the Caribbean. Now with a frontal boundary again here, that generally should kind of have it slide there within that moisture area. So this could actually intensify as it moves from here up along this moisture stream here into the Atlantic Ocean. So there is a possibility we could see some increase in intensity there. But again, it's not going to happen for a number of days. I want to show you the GFS too. And again, the moisture that we're watching are those tropical waves right there. And as we advance things through the weekend, you see that moisture working its way into the eastern part of the Caribbean. So by the time we reach about Wednesday of next week, we're starting to see the GFS kind of generate low pressure area there over the southern part of the Caribbean. And then it starts to deepen there south of Haiti and the Dominican Republic before being dragged northward along with this frontal boundary that's going to be off the East Coast. So once we get out to that 10-day window, you can see that this becomes kind of a powerful system moving out into the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. And so we've gone out a little bit farther beyond that 10-day period there, as it looks like we're out beyond 300 hours. But if we go all the way back to the 240 there, and I believe that's where we're looking at 240. Some of the numbers are pretty small on here. 252, 240 right there. So we can see the GFS is still keeping a pretty good tropical system there somewhere over the northern part of the Caribbean. Let's roll it back here and we'll look at the Canadian real quick. And the Canadian yesterday was pretty robust on developing that tropical system over the Caribbean. There you can see it kind of develops a little bit earlier than what the GFS and the Euro were suggesting. And this is actually on Sunday. This coming Sunday would actually bring, looks like what might be a tropical depression through the Windward and Leeward Islands and then continuing it on a westward track. Now this is about a week from today, and kind of like the GFS, we've got low pressure, possibly a tropical system there somewhere near Haiti, the Dominican Republic, or over toward Cuba. And then it kind of slides off toward the west as we go out into day 10. So this one's a little bit different from what the GFS and the Euro are showing. The Euro and the GFS kind of showing some kind of a development here, and then it getting caught up and then pulled back out to sea. But the Canadian, you can see, has that development maybe a little bit farther toward the Caribbean islands, but then it takes more of a westerly track over towards Central America. But I want to remind you that both, at least all three of these, are not showing anything moving into the Gulf waters. So we'll go ahead and finish with the icon. And Icon really was not really excited about this low, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on through the next 7 days. Maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a trend here with low pressure over the western part of the Caribbean by about next Tuesday or Wednesday. But again, the Icon model doesn't quite go as far out as some of the other models do. Google AI is also showing that tropical wave continuing to move westward. It's not just the Google models, but it's also some of the other models. This is a number, about 4 or 5 different computer models kind of generating where low pressure could be. And you can see that with the Euro, or rather the Canadian model, you get that low to develop and then kind of make its way off toward the west. But some of the other models do fester something there over the western and southwestern part of the Caribbean as we get into the middle and latter part of next week. Now, we're already getting into next weekend on this one, and you see that most of the action stays near Central America, with very little of it turning off toward the northeast. So again, the Google AI and the other model trends are showing something developing here, but most of them kind of drift things off toward the west, toward Central America, with just a handful kind of pulling them off toward the northeast. And you can see there it's kind of reset as it moves off toward the west. That does fall in line with the latest global tropics hazard outlook, which does keep about a 40% chance that we'll see some action there in the Caribbean going into the middle and latter part of next week. But the good news is week 3, as we start to roll into November, perhaps that activity is going to drop off. We're getting down to the last several weeks of the hurricane season. The Euro ensemble suite does show a low tracking from the Atlantic into the Caribbean and possibly getting some development here. And then the GFS also, rather than development really coming out from here, we have more development in the Caribbean. But looks like a lot of the models are kind of split. Some take them over here towards Central America, and the other ones kind of turn them toward the north. So there is a lot of uncertainty on whether or not a low pressure area will develop there. Will it become a tropical system? And then what's going to put the influence on it to turn its track, whether it goes out into the Atlantic or if it continues to move off toward the west. So a lot of that is up in the air, but our friends who live in the Caribbean do still need to be on guard for this particular setup, because we could have a significant tropical system in the Caribbean in about a week. And that would not be that unusual, because a lot of our developing and tracking systems do come from the Caribbean. But generally, not always, but generally, most of them turn off toward the northeast after that. So we'll kind of keep an eye on those waves. As long as we don't have any named storms coming up, we should be in good shape. But I do want to remind you that we've had 12 named storms, and an average hurricane season brings 14. And usually during October, you'll have about 2 or 3, and during the month of November, it's usually about 1 or 2. So there's still a pretty good chance that we're going to finish off the hurricane season pretty close to normal. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. If you do like this video, subscribe to my channel and also turn on those notifications. And remember, you can hear my forecast daily on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And this weekend, I'll be over at WBRZ Channel 2 in Baton Rouge. Catch me 10 o'clock on Saturday in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and 5 a.m. on Monday. That's my work schedule for Baton Rouge this week. And of course, thanks to everyone who's following my social media pages both on Facebook and X, and of course, everyone who's already subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and I'll see you on Friday. Have a great day.